Hello, welcome back to Urban X Files. Today I'm going to talk about shadow people and the various types of shadow people out there. So, say you're sat down on the couch watching TV, chilling with your other half, when something is seen out the corner of your eye. So you say, "Did you see that, love?" And your partner replies, "See which?" They think nothing more of it and carry on watching TV. Moments later, you look up quickly and this time you see something fleeing from the corner of your eye. The shape is definitely human, but it seems to be a shadow. So you jump up off the couch and think someone's in the house and you go to find them. But nobody was there, but you definitely seen the shadow of a human on the wall. Now, what are shadow figures? Some people believe shadow people are compassionate guardians, like people's guardian angels and various things. Yet others seem to think the complete opposite. Some people think these shadow people are evil entities. But regardless of what evidence people have, we are yet to find the truth or the reason for shadow people. There is various speculation about what these are and various theories that people have put their thoughts forward. And the name that obviously has caught on is shadow people. And some people also feel that shadow people are ghosts and spirits of people that have passed on to the next world. Others believe they are evil beings that are sent to cause harm and disruption in everyday people's lives. Others believe these are interdimensional entities that slip between our world and their world. Regardless of this, we still don't know what these are. Could they also be time travelers? And there is also the theory of, are these shadow people aliens? There's just that many different theories out there. Now, a lot of people have mistaken shadow people as ghosts, but they seem to be completely different than normal ghosts. Ghosts are said to be spirits of dead people, and these beings take on human manifestations, yet there are still no definitive explanations, and they do differ from the typical ghost description, having discernible physical features and characteristics, including their clothing, their appearance, the fact they have a face or various things. They're transparent, and shadow people tend to be fast moving, little flickers of things in the corner of your eye, and various accounts sometimes portray that these are totally black entities but with red or yellow eyes. Some are said to have a cloak, which would look like the Grim Reaper or monks as a good common explanation. Others have also reported shadow people wearing some type of hat. There is various research that reveals the movements of shadow people that are quick and jerky, and sometimes that stops and starts, not like a floating actions or motions like a ghost. A ghost tends to be transparent and not as fast moving as what a shadow person would be. They have witnesses who've claimed to have had encounters with these mysterious entities, and they express an ominous presence or a sense of being watched. Now, this is true whether it's a ghost or a shadow entity. They offer similar things, yet some things that are very different. Reports have said that they don't appear to reflect light and are essentially a silhouette in black. Now, I have mentioned my own experience of this in a previous video. I'll give a brief insight to this now, what my experience was. Many years ago, I worked in a hospital. I was a nurse on night shifts, and on the ward I worked on, it was a relatively quiet ward of an evening because it was a skin ward. So, other than the odd person who was needing the turning hourly or obs done throughout the night, it was a very quiet shift. Now, with the patients no more than 24, there were always at least 3 members of staff. You would have obviously the staff in charge, and then staff below this nurse in charge. Now, as it was quiet, we would often get an unofficial 2-hour break. So for 3 staff, that would be 2 hours each. Now, I had my break around 2 o'clock in the morning, I think it was my turn to have a break. So I went into the nurse's room. Now, the nurse's room used to be part of a private side room for patients, and I later found out that this room was turned into a nursing room because patients kept having and reporting stuff that went on in that room that upset them. So they turned it into our day room, night room, whatever. So in this room there was a chair that reclined into like a bed. It had a window, the fridge, various other things, some other chairs and bits. So I reclined the chair back into a bed, and I had my portable DVD player. So I was watching something like Everybody Loves Raymond, I think it was, to occupy my mind. I couldn't quite sleep because my sleeping pattern was all disturbed with being on nights, and I had been in that room for about 45 minutes watching TV, and there was no curtain or blinds on the small window. And as the chair was laid back into the bed, I was often looking at the ceiling where I was seeing some shadow, and I tried to figure out what this shadow was of, because I couldn't work it out, because there was nothing that would cause such a shadow. And as I say, there was no light. Only light outside was the ones by the car park and the moon. Being a clear night, it was quite bright outside, so I figured it was something from that. And as I was staring at this thing for 10 minutes trying to figure out what it was, I noticed this shadow to become more like a black mist. And this shadow began to move. It moved across the ceiling independently, and it moved down the wall, because these are quite high ceilings, and then it went out of the door through the gap at the top. It just like steam would escape from a room, and it went out into the night. I wasn't scared. I was more intrigued than anything else, and there were other staff who reported creepy things in this room, and it wasn't until afterwards I found out that's the reason why that room was turned into a nursing room rather than a side room. Anyway, back to shadow people. Some say the shadow entities tend to take on personalities. Some are said to be childlike, some are said to be mischievous and funny, and others are able to sort of give the person who's experienced the shadow entity some form of peace, whether these are a guardian angel or some sort of comforting entity or a family member as such. And remember, we do sort of have a difference between ghosts and spirits and shadow people. Now, the origin of shadow people goes back many, many years. So the nature and the origin of shadow people to this day are officially unknown. As I've said before, people believe these are interdimensional beings, possible extraterrestrials, and various other demonic entities as well as angels, or psychic energy, like you have psychic vampires. The vampires take the form of a shadow, and it's a way to get about where they are able to draw the energy from their victim. There are some conditions that are reported to have similar occurrences during people's experience of these shadow people, whether these are sleep paralysis, which is similar to the old hag syndrome, which I've talked again about, and I've also relayed my own personal experience of sleep paralysis or the old hag. But again, I have talked about my own experience of sleep paralysis. Again, I will go over this quickly in this video. I got up for work one day around 4 or 5 in the morning. I had a taxi at the time, so I goes outside, gets in the car, starts the car. I think, I'm too tired, too cold, too miserable and wet outside. Turn the ignition off, lock up, and goes back into the house. And I put my pajamas back on, get back in the bed, and then try to go back asleep. Now, I was there less than 10 minutes, say, in bed, so it wasn't enough time for me to fall asleep and fall into the REM stages of sleep, where your brain's sort of awake as such, having a dream. And I heard what I can only sound as like the blinds blowing in the wind, or when you hear leaves and crisp packets blow in the wind, that type of noise, but on a lower scale. And I found that it wasn't loud enough for me to get up and investigate it. I thought possibly one of the windows in the other bedroom had been left open, which is normal in the summer, but during the winter time, because it's so cold, this was something that we didn't do. We didn't leave the window open because it was that cold. So I felt something come into the bedroom and at the side of my bed. And it happened rather quick, so I wasn't able to get up and look. I felt this sensation come onto my leg, and I knew what was happening. And the next minute, I felt this humongous pressure on my body. I wasn't able to move, blink my eyelids, scream, shout, talk, or anything. I was only able to grunt. And after a short period of time, my wife woke up and was like, "What's the matter? What's the matter?" Turn the light on, and then I felt this thing lift off and disappear into the night. That was my own experience of sleep paralysis. That wasn't sleep paralysis, so I didn't see anything. Just to clarify, I didn't see no shadow people or anything like that. So there are other things that people often report with shadow figures, which is pareidolia, which is where the brain thinks it sees patterns, shadows, textures, or different things that turn into faces, bodies, and things. These are often seen in orbs where looks like there's a face of something in it. So this is what the brain perceives. Then we have various categories of these shadow entities, which are the benign shadows, which are shadow people that seem to travel briefly throughout a person's life. Then you've got the negative shadows, and although these are shadow people tend to simply just be there, they are associated with discomfort and fear. Then you have these with different coloured eyes, like red, yellow-eyed entities. And these are often always negative. I have a story about a negative red-eyed shadow, which I will relate to you at a different date. And people often report they feel fear from this entity, and they feel that whatever it is drains the energy away from them. Then you've got these hooded shadow figures, which seem to come in the form of a monk or something along those lines, like I mentioned before. And then obviously the Hat Man, which we talked about before as well. Now, shadow people don't seem to often be dangerous, although they do project an overwhelming fear of dread and uncomfortable feelings. So whatever they are, there are multiple reports of shadow entities. So do they exist? I think that they do through seeing things myself. So if any of you guys have ever had any experiences of shadow people, please do let me know. So this is someone's experience that I found that had been reported. It said there's a guy called Michael, and his encounter with a shadow figure was in 1998, and this has many typical characteristics, and here is his experience. Now, Michael had just purchased a home, and he spent the day decorating it and making it nice before he moved in. So his friends that were there helping him, they'd all left, and he decided to get some sleep. As he was decorating it, he had brought himself a blanket, and there was a beanbag chair, and he said he woke up in the middle of the night feeling thirsty. So he went into the kitchen to get some water, and then this is when he says he got distracted. He got this distinct feeling that someone or something was watching him, and there at the top of the basement stairs and in front of the light switch, he could make out the figure of a human. At first he thought this was one of his friends that had still stayed and fell asleep elsewhere or whatever it is, so he called out to his friend, and then obviously nothing replied. So he was still convinced that he was looking at one of his friends that were hiding, ready to scare him. Then, after he realised it couldn't be his friend through the words that he'd said and different things, so he began to panic a little bit, thinking that there was a stranger in his house, and he wondered who this could be. So he grabbed himself a knife that was in the kitchen, ready to defend himself. Then this happened so fast, he found it hard to explain. He said the shadow moved forward towards him in his direction, and he lunged forward with the knife, thinking this was someone about to attack him. He said he witnessed the shadow figure move into the blade as if it was deliberately trying to impale itself with the weapon. Except it didn't stop. It kept coming. He screamed at this shadow figure, and it continued to move straight through his body. Michael spun round in a 180-degree motion, and he saw the shadow thing moving at a leisurely pace away from himself. It proceeded to walk through the kitchen and into the dining room, and then finally through a wall that would have led outside if there was a door there. So he turned on the light switch, and he was wide awake now, his adrenaline pumping through his veins. So he went and searched the house and found nothing. There was no open doors or windows, or there was nothing that would sort of explain this entity. Now, he said he never had a repeat of this encounter while living in the house, and he said that he often wondered that if he was thirsty due to the paint fumes, which caused him to hallucinate a little. And he also would like to include that the address of his house had the ending numbers in 666. So this made him think, was this some sort of weird demonic entity that was living in the property? So yes, that is the experience of shadow figures. So if any of you have had your experience of a shadow figure, then please do let me know. And thank you for watching. If you watched it all the way through, take care and see you in the next video. Peace.